Georgia football is having a lot of memorable seasons right now. Obviously, back-to-back championships a couple of years ago. But when you're in that sphere and you're competing for championships, and Georgia's essentially been doing that pretty much the entire time under Kirby Smart. Georgia's been one of the handful of teams that you point to each season and say, yeah, I think that team, at least has a chance to go on and win the national championship. So all these seasons are memorable. 2025 has an opportunity to be a very special season. And I say that, not necessarily predicting Georgia goes on to win the national championship this coming season. I don't know yet. It's too early for me to make a prediction like that. And look, to be brutally honest with you, there's a lot I don't know about Georgia's roster yet because I don't know what it's going to look like until spring comes around. When you look at the home schedule for Georgia and just the schedule in general, this is a special season upcoming. Even if Georgia lost some of these games, in terms of just the draw to watch it, I mean, there's a reason why Georgia was the most watched regular season team a season ago. And it went on the road and played Texas and played Alabama in what is arguably the game of 2024, the best football game of 2024, and went to Ole Miss and obviously, played in a top 10 matchup against Tennessee. All of that combined, the overtime games, the SEC championship, Georgia was the most watched team. I look at this coming season, and to be honest, I don't know why that would change. And I mean, I'll look up Ohio State's schedule and see if that compares in any way. But when you look at Georgia, I don't see why the Dogs aren't going to be the most watched team again in 2025. Ryan Curley from Dawg posts, I think the 2025 is going to be at least a special season in Athens, right? And a special season for Georgia fans. When you think about all of the big matchups, they've been in these big matchups over and over. Obviously, with Kirby, they've scheduled Notre Dame at home. They've scheduled neutral site games with Clemson. But with all of the changes in college football the last couple of years and adding teams to the conference, the SEC, getting rid of the East and the West and just making it all one big conference, and now there aren't as many rules about who's playing who. These big matchups are happening over and over again, and as much as some of the changes in college football are unpopular, right? NIL is not popular to a lot of people. The transfer portal is not a popular thing to a lot of people. They don't like the way it's changing things and creating so much roster turnover and kind of a lack of stability at certain programs. The one thing that I think you can lay your heads down at night and say, well, all of the changes may mean these things that a lot of people don't like, but some people do. The one thing that I think is really special that has come out of it is we're seeing just huge matchups, and we're seeing them kind of on a week in and week out basis. And especially in the SEC, obviously I cover an SEC team, and most of what I do is centered around what's going on inside of this conference, but across college football. I mean, the matchups were amazing. And think about this past college football regular season. And obviously, when I'm looking at these things, there's a lot of times I'm looking at it from a Georgia perspective because that's my job to do so. But looking at this from a college football perspective and a Georgia perspective, I mean, was that regular season not better? Like, I know that people argue about, and there's validity to it, when you talk about Ohio State losing to Michigan in the final week in rivalry week, and they still make an extended playoff, right? Because now there's 12 teams in it, and they go on to win the national championship. That's the way it shook out. And if we're going to have this extended playoff and more teams, then you're going to see a little bit more of that happen, where there's leeway to lose in the regular season. There was leeway for Georgia to lose in the regular season. They won the conference championship and earned the top 2 seed in the playoff. So Georgia got itself in the position it needed to and ultimately wanted to be in, but lost a couple of games along the way. So those things can kind of still exist. But, man, the 2021 season, obviously I've been a part of special football seasons because I've covered 2 national championship seasons. The 2021 season and the 2022 season were special, and there were a lot of really big moments in the regular season. I think about in 2021, it kicks off with that Clemson game, and it's really, there's no offensive touchdown in the game. There's one defensive touchdown. It's just a sack fest. for the Georgia front seven against Clemson quarterback DJU. That was a huge moment. Arkansas at home with College Game Day and Georgia shutting out a top 10 team at the time. That was a huge moment. Jordan Davis against Charleston Southern scoring a touchdown as a defensive tackle on a handoff, right? There's huge moments, but I think about the 2024 college football season, and I think about starting it off with Clemson in Atlanta, and then just a couple weeks later going up to Kentucky, and it's just a total crapshoot up there, and neither team can really score, and Georgia finally scores late and wins 13-12. And then you follow that up by going out to Alabama and experiencing the wildness of the Georgia, I'm calling it a rivalry, of the recent Georgia-Alabama rivalry, and being a part of one of the craziest games I've ever watched. And then they still have to play Auburn and all that. They go on the road at Texas and into a new environment. And Georgia-Texas is now turning into one of the most anticipated matchups in college football. This is what people want to watch. They want to watch the Dogs versus the Longhorns. Now they played twice last season. That's only going to add fuel to the fire. They're going to play this season, and this time it's going to be in Athens. And Arch Manning is going to be the quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. Georgia was his second choice, and he's a guy that visited Athens a lot. He at least was considering the Dogs. It was in his top 2 or 3 of choices. He's got an opportunity to kind of right the wrong for Texas and go into Athens and try to win that game for the Longhorns. The regular season was special. I didn't even talk about the Georgia Tech game. Now, that's the way this regular season shook out for Georgia, and part of it is because of the inconsistencies of the team and kind of underperforming to the level of the expectation that I think probably a lot of us had for that 2024 Georgia team. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't, and we talked about, is it a successful season? It doesn't mean that it wasn't a successful season in terms of entertainment value. I think that a lot of Georgia fans, I've seen people call them the cardiac dogs, the defibrillator dogs, right? We're talking about, what would we name a book if Georgia won the national championship last season? And people joked about, hey, cardiac dogs, these guys are giving me a heart attack. That's what people were saying. It made for great TV. If you were watching on TV, obviously I was there in person for everything. It made for great in-person entertainment, and the college football regular season special. That's why I think that when you look at the Georgia schedule for 2025, and I apologize that I haven't shown y'all yet what I'm looking at, but that's Ohio State's schedule. We'll get back to our regular programming with Georgia's schedule. You got to go up to Knoxville and play in September, and then you get a bye, and you have to follow that up with playing Bama at home, right? You got to go to Auburn, one of the toughest places to play in college football. You got to deal with whatever Ole Miss is going to be. I don't know exactly what that team's going to be this season. You still got the Jacksonville game. You got a road trip. Texas in November. Texas and Georgia in Sanford Stadium in November. It's probably going to be chilly, at least a little bit nippy outside. And then they're going to cap it off by playing Georgia Tech in Atlanta, in not at Bobby Dodd Stadium, but in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in a neutral site game on Black Friday again. That's on Saturday, so I might have made a mistake right there, but you get my point. Again, you look at this and you say, well, while there's probably going to be a lot of incredible moments, even if all of those moments aren't necessarily good for Georgia, this is going to be an extremely memorable season. Has there ever been a regular season like this where if Alabama and Ole Miss and Texas, they hold true to what they've been the last couple of years, are there going to be 3 top 10 matchups in Athens this coming season? Is College Game Day going to go to Athens 3 times? Are they allowed to do that if they want to do that? Is College Game Day going to be in Knoxville when Georgia goes up there and plays Tennessee against a quarterback that people are, over the course of this offseason, going to hype up as one of the best, probably 3 or 4 in college football for this upcoming season? That's how I look at this. Is Florida going to prove the doubters wrong and play above what their over-under, which is 6.5 wins for this coming season is? And by the time that matchup with the Dogs rolls around, is that going to be a sight to behold? So I have a lot of questions and excitement about what this upcoming season is in terms of an entertainment value. In terms of what it's going to be for Georgia, we're still trying to learn the answer to that. But either way, it's going to be special in terms of a home season and all the different matchups that you can go to. So start saving your money if you haven't, because this is going to be a hell of a ride here soon. Thanks for watching.